be found at the cell surface. You can add an antibody that marks them, and then basically once they endocytose, you can fix your cells at that point, and then just label the population that remains. That tells you how efficiently endocytosis is happening by just taking a comparison of what's left in the membrane compared to what was there before. And then you can also lyse your cells later on and then add in a secondary and look at the population that was brought into the cell. So this is what we call an antibody feeding assay. So this allows you to basically manipulate any protein that's involved in this entire web of trafficking and then see if it has a direct effect on the trafficking pathway itself. Because anything that prevents them from getting to their target destinations will show a difference in the amount of quantified fluorescence after this antibody feeding assay. Okay, but that's just in case you want to ever do these experiments yourself. So, so the recycling system begins when endosomes come in. The endosomes wind up fusing together through the snare-based mechanism, and then they build something called the early endosome. This early endosome will actually have a bunch of different proteins inside of it, and then the critical point comes where they decide to start moving these certain proteins out from the early endosome into these tubular profiles. And so these tubular profiles will be predominantly comprised of just one type of protein. And so as illustrated here, you can see this red thing here is TFR, transferrin receptors coming here, and it's lining up this tubular profile here. And it's being sequestered from these other markers such as EGFR and CINP markers. And so while this process is happening, this early endosome also matures. And it matures by phosphoinositide conversion. So there's a series of dephosphorylation events that happen that convert the phosphoinositide makeup of this thing. When the phosphoinositides change, that causes other proteins to be recruited there and to create different tubular profiles. So step one, you're in mostly PI3P. There you'll create one tubular profile for the proteins that need to be recycled quickly back to the membrane, such as transferrin receptor. And then as that phosphoinositide matures, then you can create another tubular profile, say that's sensitive to PI3-5P2, which is then sent to either the late endosome or to the Golgi or the lysosome. So these tubular profiles, how are they made? Well, they're pretty interesting. So you create this little endosome, and then what happens is that the tubular profile is initiated by a kinesin motor on microtubules. So it pulls on the membrane. So it's providing force in the membrane. So this can be exemplified here. So in this assay, it's a turf-based assay where they micro-patterned on the surface a pattern for microtubules. So they patterned the surface for microtubules, you can see in the green lines, and then troughs for actin. And then the idea was simple. They're going to add in liposomes, bound to kinesins, and then just have them walk along the microtubule, see what they do. Okay, so this is happening here. In the top movie there, you have a case where you have the kinesin and that liposome, but there's no barbidates around. You can see it's stuck in the actin network. But on the bottom here, you have a DUV where you've added barbidates to it, and it can actually zoom through the actin network. Let's save the data. So this is the summary of that. Is that basically when you have a liposome that has like myosin 1 motors on it, because you know those bind to membranes but also bind to actin, then they will get stuck in the actin network. So that acts as like a force to restrain the liposome from going into it. And so if you try to pull on that membrane, there's so much resistance due to the myosins bind onto the actin itself, so you don't get long tubules. But if you put a barbamate on that, it lowers, again, the membrane tension, which allows you then to pull this tubule off even further.
Question?
Yep.
With those flat bar domains?
Yep. Oh, in this case, no, these are not flat. These are very tubulated. So these are the end bar proteins. So the flat bar domains only exist in plasma membrane. So it turns out that the bar domains come in many different varieties. And what's interesting about the bar domains that play a role in recycling is that they like to form heteroligomers with each other. And that's awesome Because if you are thinking about like you have a lot of different types of proteins you need to move to different locations, you can mix and match your bar domains to create kind of unique identities of these tubules that are coming out of the recycling endosome. And then these unique tubules can then serve to actually put specific proteins in those domains. And the proteins get put into these domains through a complex called the retromer. So the retromer can come with one of two varieties. This is the core subunits here, it's UPS 35, 26, 29. And then it can interact with a number of sorting mixin proteins. So there's a whole bunch of sorting mixin proteins. The one thing they have in common is they have something called the PX8, which binds to PI3, the bioactive. But there's many different shapes. The ones that I just showed you were the bar domains, which are only a small section of those. The other retromer actually makes use of the bar domains itself. So it actually docks onto the bar domains, and which is most commonly is the most common type of retromer that you would see. Recently, there's high resolution cryo-EM structure of this, which actually reveals what it looks like and what happens when you bind cargo to it. So it too recognizes tails with a very specific sequence motif, and when it does recognize it, it actually causes a conformational change within the retromer itself. And this is quite cool to think about when it can also bind onto these bar domains, because now you can actually bind a cargo onto the retromer, and the retromer binds onto the bar domain lattice, and so now your protein, your cargoes, actually get intercalated into the lattice itself. So now if you think you're making this tubule, and like I said, these bar domains make this helical pattern going around this tubule, now they can actually bind the retromer, and together they can actually start filling up that tubule with proteins. Question? Yep.
Sorry, when you say tubule, is that just meant to mean like a long protrusion of the membrane, or does that have to do with microtubules?
Oh, yeah, it's a long protrusion in the membrane.
Okay.
Yeah, no microtubules. There is a microtubule there, but that's just to provide a means in which you can bring in kinesin. So, but yeah, tubule in this case is a membrane tubule. It should be more specific.
Another question?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No
Is it
worries.
possible for an enzyme to have like multiple recycling tubules?
Yes, absolutely. And that's actually quite critical because the recycling endosome itself is in that first movie that I was showing you. It's really dynamic. You get membranes fusing from all over the place with it. And so there's no way to specify the early recycling endosome as to be one type of component, one type of protein into it. So as a consequence, it receives thousands of receptors inside of it. And it actually starts creating these little tubules that go up. So my lab person works on this type of business, and the problem with that is that they're really dynamic and they're very hard to capture. So it's hard to ever see how many you could have at any one time. Also, it's not clear how much of that is tied to the phosphoinositide identity of the recycling endosome, because that maturation plays a big role into how the tubules come out. So, anyways, you get these membrane tubules. And it's quite clear you need kinesin to provide a pulling force on it. And then you have an actin meshwork. Like I showed before, you could get those tubules only when you had an actin meshwork. That was there to kind of resist the membrane being pulled. So that in a cell is actually generated by the wash complex. So the wash complex is one of these activators of the R2-3 complex. So it actually provides branch actin nucleation on this recycling endosome, and then that acts as the actin barrier, so you can pull the tubule through it. And then eventually you can pull this far enough, and then you get recruitment of what's not shown here is dynamin 2 comes here, and then eventually it severs this tubular profile. And then that's when you get these tubules that move along. So in the case of the recycling system, it's not always vesicular. Most often it's actually a tubular profile. Because the tubular profile actually has a higher surface to volume ratio, which you can then use to include more proteins on them. But they're still coated nonetheless with like bar domains. Okay, so I'm going to talk about escorts just a bit here. We didn't talk about them much last time, but so the escorts are this, they're kind of like an intermediate filament in a way. So they're a polymeric like little coil motif. And they can assemble, but they assemble in a way that generates these helical ring-like structures. And they do this in a sequential way. They start off with this this sequential recruitment of escort 0, escort 1, and 2, and so on and so forth. It's not really important to know their identities, but the escort 3s are the ones that do the business end of this. So they are the ones that legalize into this helical subdomain. And there's a bunch of them, and it's not that important to know which ones do what, but they can also co-assemble in many different ways. So this allows them to make many different geometries as well. And so it was seen that these things can either put holes into things, they can either push out a membrane, or they can pull out a membrane. They can go either direction. You can see here in the spinal replica that you have this membrane, you can see the spiral-like pattern that's on here, and then you can see this hole in the middle here. And that's because this escort is making the spiral system that's pushing out the membrane. And then in this case, it's actually pulling it out, the opposite topology. And so escorts have been famously associated with the formation of ILVs, which are intraluminal vesicles. This happens at the late stages of endosomal maturation, and this is you can see this or appreciate this in this cryotomography. So in cryotomography, they're taking these thin sections of this cell and using cryo-EM to look at these things, and then they're going to make a three-dimensional profile of what that looks like. So you can see that's a late endosome that's there, and it's filled with all these little vesicles in there, and those are the ILVs. Those little vesicles predominantly house ubiquitinated proteins. These are proteins that are meant to be degraded. And so what happens is the escorts bind to ubiquitin, and by forming the spiral-like thing, they can corral them and then send them down this funnel. And so when they do that, this will spiral down, these ubiquitin proteins will ride along this funnel, and then eventually it'll pinch off this membrane and then create a vesicle inside of the vesicle. And then that late endosome will eventually fuse with the lysosome, and everything inside will be degraded. Escorts have been recently implicated in driving severing. So they are found, like I said, to be on the outside of the membrane. So here is a recycling endosome. So this answers your question. You can see multiple tubules on the same recycling endosome. So there's 3 coming out of this. And you can see these little dots on here. Those are the escort proteins, and they actually form these kind of helical-like patterns on the side of them. And then if you look at this in vitro, what you can see is that they actually form these beautiful linear coats on here, but they also create these deep invaginations. And these are very narrow diameter tubules on the order of 10 nanometers. So close enough where the membrane can actually fuse together and hence pinch off the membrane. And so those escorts play a major role in the late endosome, where you're actually, as you're separating out the good proteins, you're actually packaging up the bad proteins inside of this late endosome. So, and then finally, I won't take long for this, it's just one slide. So the Golgi, a lot of these proteins can pinch upon the Golgi, and the Golgi does the same thing as what happens with the plasma membrane and at the recycling endosomes. You can also induce membrane-coated protein. You can coat these membrane vesicles that are budging off the trans Golgi with various coat proteins. So, in fact, the Golgi can receive coated vesicles that are coming from the ER as a part of the COP1, COP2 system, and this is part of the secretory pathway. But it also sends vesicles out to the trans Golgi network, which is on the base that sends vesicles out to the plasma membrane. And in fact, the coat that it uses in that is plastic. So it uses the exact same coat that we use at the plasma membrane on the Golgi. And up until very recently, it wasn't quite clear whether the same mechanisms were at play on the Golgi as they were in the plasma membrane. But recent work has revealed that actually the actin cytoskeleton is important for this process. So if you were to inhibit, so this is the Golgi here, if you were to inhibit myosin 2, you would see these tubules that are forming here. Whereas in this wild type case, we're not inhibiting myosin 2. And you can see that the number of tubule carriers, number of tubules that are formed over time actually decreases when you wash away that inhibitor of myosin 2. And then if you inhibit myosin 2, you also prevent the transport of proteins that are in the Golgi out to the plasma membrane. So these are control cells. You can see there's staining everywhere. But when you inhibit myosin 2, it's all stuck in the Golgi. And then it was actually shown that myosin 2 seems to play an important role in separate in this case. Because if you wash out the lotus-statin inhibitor myosin 2, you can actually start seeing these tubules on the left side becoming perfect. And so that led to this idea that actin assembly and myosin 2 are actually important for the budding of trans Golgi plasma membrane carriers. Okay, that's it.